It is seriously a great pleasure of mine to introduce Suzy today. I know Suzy for quite a long time, but we started really interacting through a program called Future Fashion Factory. We'll come to that in a bit, but I knew that Suzy is hugely experienced in fashion, retail, marketing. She's a founder and director of Leeds Fashion Works and also Yorkshire Textiles Limited. I knew that nobody really understands garments visually more than Suzy, how it looks like. She got a brilliant appreciation of quality of garments. But what I didn't knew before Future Fashion Factory was Suzy's absolute passion for this industry, textile industry, for the fashion industry. More importantly, Suzy's passion about the part of the world we are from, about Yorkshire. And I have really seen a bigger ambassador for Yorkshire than Suzy. So it's such a pleasure for me to hand over the virtual stage to Suzy.
Thank you, Parik. Thank you. Well, I'm delighted to be here today, obviously, to talk about regional textiles and in particular in relation to the global fashion industry. I think we have a slide coming up. Rachel's helping me today with my slides. Yes, that's the original one. So those are really, I'm connected across three things, if you like. I'm obviously Future Fashion Factory co-director. I also founded Leeds Fashion Works, and that grew into, I was taken over, if you like, by myself to become Yorkshire Textiles through my own passion. I think we've got another slide here to show you something. Yeah, this is a project from the Future Fashion Factory, which was with a mill. And I'll come back to this a little later. This jacquard, remember this jacquard, you may see it later in the slides in another form, and there's a story behind it. Future Fashion Factory is basically industry-led. So it's supporting and responding to the industry's needs, working to develop technology and support innovation, if you like. So it takes on a lot of different conversations. It's a wide-ranging industry. It's in constant conversation, engagement with fashion and textile sector. And big issues are raised, such as sustainability, traceability, reducing waste, recycling, and developing new creative platforms and technology that are going to be and already are key to the industry as a whole, all the way through the chain. I know we've had some brilliant people talking, Adam Mansell in particular in this series of lectures. Now, Adam Mansell is also chair of the steering group as well of Future Fashion Factory, as well as, of course, being CEO of UK Fashion and Textiles. If you've missed that one, please catch up with it from Adam, because it's so much information about the industry. There's so much happening right now. But what I found was fantastic were the figures that Adam gave, the value of the industry as a whole to the UK economy. And it's huge. And Adam puts that into fabulous context. So it's worth catching up with that. The industry as a whole is, well, it's multifaceted, it's interdependent, it's across a wide chain of related industries, from raw fibre to end product, retail and beyond retail. What happens to those garments when they're no longer being used? So it's a big subject. Fashion's a big subject. So I think I'm going to start with that end product. I think I'm going to start about the fashion. First of all, I'll give you a little bit about how I became, as Parik said, passionate about this industry. I was working with Carolyn Lord. We were doing some, for Leeds Fashion Works, we were doing some educational projects, which were really about engaging young people in various opportunities and jobs and skills in Leeds City region, in fashion, but not necessarily directly as a designer. And it's so wide-ranging. So we'd been doing some work with Harvey Nichols in Leeds, and the project had gone incredibly well. And so they offered us a chance of having a small showcase within the store to reflect what we'd been doing. That showcase, that small showcase in the store, we took over the whole store because we became more and more passionate. People became more and more involved. I think we've got an image here, Rachel, from one of the many displays that we did at Harvey Nichols. Yeah. So the whole store was themed with this. And how we got to this point of madness, really, was we had one of the people from the mills go to Harvey Nichols and assess for us how many garments were being made by Yorkshire mills, the cloth for the garments, all the big labels, international labels in Harvey Nichols menswear. It was the autumn-winter season when we did that. And he went, checked it out, because mill people, of course, they recognise their own cloth, but they recognise everyone else's cloth too. So it's a really good detective work. And he came back and he said, well, this is about 70%. So suddenly the penny dropped for us. We thought, wait a minute, 70% of all these gorgeous luxury brands here in Harvey Nichols are made by mills here in Yorkshire. And that's how we just extended this insanely, obviously with the help of the design and display teams. Well, totally down to them. They were brilliant at Harvey Nichols. And also, we put out the thing, we'd work with maybe a handful of mills, hopefully. We ended up with 12 mills. So we were going to have to represent 12 mills within this display. So there's a lot of display to do. This image that you can see now, which is the garments with those little sample cards, those sample cards were mounted to actually really show the heritage, why we're here doing textiles. And one of the things, when these guys had all been out and visited mills from the design place, they said, so it's the rain. So it's the rain that makes the Pennine Water, and that's all part of it. So they reflected that using sample cards from mills into that rain cloud effect in Harvey. This is one of many. There are so many, but I won't share them all with you in my enthusiasm. So that was really how I became hooked in the industry as a whole. That showcase across the store, I mean, we had cloth, rolls of cloth draped from right up from the ceiling, all the way down through the escalator to ground floor. We themed outside, we themed the restaurant. The team there were fantastic. And one thing they came back from the mills was saying, they're so passionate in these places. They're so passionate about their product. And obviously that shows through the sort of products that are hitting this sort of luxury market. And it was the first time that the mills had collectively worked together on a marketing project like this. So this is where I got the bug for textiles, basically. And it continues to be a journey for me over the years. The more you learn about textiles, the more there is to know. So hopefully this explains why I'm so keen on Yorkshire and textiles. But really, I think we're living in this area where we're totally surrounded by all this, and it's not always known or appreciated. And what shocked me after we'd done this, because this was a great, huge investment for the store. As I said, we changed textiles, furniture, as well as all these displays. So it ran for several months like this. And people would actually say to me, people in Yorkshire would say to me, I had no idea we had something like this here. It's fantastic. I had no idea. And we're a textile homeland, and the cloth here is known worldwide as the Rolls-Royce of woolen textiles. There's no argument in that pedigree that comes from Yorkshire for those textiles. So maybe this is something we can bring up in the discussion group later, or someone has a question. I'd be really interested to hear their views as well. I must admit, mills do tend to hide their light under a bushel a little bit. So, to the history and heritage of the industry. It is something that's all around us. Even the buildings were surrounded by the Peace Hall, for example, 1779 is an example where pieces of hand-woven cloth were traded. Magnificent wool money buildings. Of course, there's the fabulous Salts Mill, Saltaire. Geographically, why are we here? Because it is Pennine water. It's perfect water for washing, scouring and finishing of cloth. Also, we have the skills through all these many generations. If you just go back, and it goes back beyond this, but if you just go back to, say, the Peace Hall, so people were in their cottages making, weaving and hand weaving, and would bring the pieces of cloth to be sold at the Peace Hall and traded. And that's a long history of things happening like that with the cloth. So that knowledge, that generations of knowledge, it's an absolute perfect place for knowledge exchange. And as I said, you can trace that history back so far. When the Industrial Revolution came along, it brought a wave, a tidal wave of technology and innovation. And the industry today is no stranger to technology. And I'll be coming back, perhaps hopefully a little bit to that later as well. Now, we have a picture of a very famous person on the slide here, Kate Moss. And I was going to say to this, I mean, so where are we today with all this history and all the heritage? Where are we today? This image for me sums up where local textile manufacturers are in terms of the global world of fashion. This is Kate Moss visiting Joshua Ellis Cashmere. I know you've had Oliver Platts gave the lecture the other week, and this sums up. Kate Moss visited the mill in Batley for a photo shoot for the marketing campaign for Alexander McQueen Atelier. And that image, really, that tells you everything. The beautiful garments that are made from the cloth, the fact that they want to associate them now, be shown with the mills where this is made. So I think that's a great testament as well to Joshua Ellis Cashmere and the luxury cloths they do too. So we have another picture coming up here, image, which, yeah, the Hainsworth. This is another heritage mill. By the way, Joshua Ellis Cashmere was also a heritage mill, 1767, I think. Now, Hainsworth, they were founded in 1783, and today they're still owned by the same family. So that's 7-8 generations. And for those who don't know of Hainsworth, which I'm sure many of you do, for those who don't, they're recognisable through their iconic scarlet cloth, which was used for the Queen's, and still is used for the Queen's Guard uniforms. So all those big ceremonial parades in the red cloth, that's made in Pudsey here, along with a lot of other fabulous cloth. It's not only used by the top international luxury design brands as well, but Hainsworth are very good at working with independent luxury local designers. Now, this particular picture here of the students at the Loom, this is part of a collaborative Future Fashion Factory project with Hainsworth and Yorkshire Textiles. We created basically a bespoke jacquard cloth. Now, here's technology. The jacquard loom credited with being the earliest form of coding. So we wanted to do this to see if it was commercially viable with Hainsworth to make very short runs of bespoke cloth. And we were looking at these patterns and trying to get the heritage. Where can we get all these old patterns from? So we actually used some, obviously it had to be the jacquard cards. So we actually used some very old jacquard cards. I think they came out to be about 1910 from Leeds Industrial Museum, Army Mills. We took the archive cards, and a very, very clever young designer and weaver, Rebecca Uff, then digitised the punch cards. So we could then see what they were, because we had no idea, see what they were, and then make sure that we actually got those made into this cloth on a contemporary jacquard loom. And the guys here looking at the cloth, they're from University of Leeds fashion department students. What they were doing, because we'd already had, if you remember the black and white jacquard at the beginning of the slides, we've followed that on as part of also a Yorkshire Fashion Archive project. And the students going to be working, obviously being interrupted for reasons we know, but we'll be working with this cloth to make some garments. So hopefully we'll have them soon. And it was the fashion department who wanted to do the iconic red and black as well. And for students to totally understand the process of literally from fleece to cloth to pattern cutting finished products. So I'm really looking forward to that. And we also used a bit of this cloth. We have an image here as part of Campaign for Wool with Lee Hurst Jacket. Yep, that's the one. So that's the cloth made into the garment. This was actually part of something Future Fashion Factory did as part of Campaign for Wool Week. And for the anniversary celebrations, young designer Lee Hurst made this jacket. So Lee, it was with a small group of RCA, Royal College of Art students. Also, there were graduates who were our partners for Future Fashion Factory. Now, Lee, I love this jacket. Lee, when he completed his MA, he's gone on to launch his own brand, of course, but in between, he has worked at a tailor's in the north of England. And I was so thrilled to hear that. And he made this referencing traditional Victorian tailoring skills, which included, well, he's got canvas interlining, he has horsehair padded shoulders, there's loads of things going on. And I love this sort of look at the matchup in that jacquard pattern on the screen. So that's exquisite. We hope we can do more with Lee, and certainly Hainsworth want to support Lee. Lee also worked for Christian Dior, by the way. And then the next Royal College of Art graduate garments, right. Again, part of the Wool Week. The jacket on the left is in Joshua Ellis lamb's wool. That was a great brand called Array. And Array, actually, they do a range of luxury working clothes, if you like. They're for working women. And interestingly, their most popular item last season was a really luxury black denim jacket. So they've taken this very luxurious with a Joshua Ellis lamb's wool jacket. The one next to that is Ben Johnson, and he actually used Dorme cloth. That's the one, yep. And that cloth is treated with a antibacterial finish, which is really interesting. And it's crease resistant, it's a travel jacket, but it's also, he made that on the basis that it was sort of a gender neutral style. And Ben is very keen on heritage fabrics and knows a lot about them, so it's great to work with him on that. Obviously, Lee Hurst Jacket. Now, the little outfit there with the shorts and the jacket behind that, yep, that is by Daniel Elsner. And she started a business called Decode, and that's zero waste pattern cutting. And it's a really cutting edge, interesting business she has. So that group of clothing with a little jacket and shorts is made in very traditional pinstripe and lightweight wool, summer weight, super hundreds wool, very fine cloth. So instead of it being a suit, it's turned into like casual day wear. But it's still as durable. It looks fabulous. And she'd actually, we can't really see on this, but on the edges, she's actually even used the selvage from the mill to highlight details on the jacket and shorts all around the edging, and the collar we can't quite see there. And Danielle recently won a great prize, which was for the Evian award for zero pattern cutting, zero waste. In fact, I'll have to check that, know exactly what I'm saying on that award. Yeah, it's the Evian Active Movement Award for sustainable fashion. And then we have the sweater that's made there. That's hand knitted. That's fantastic. This is actually in undyed soft sheet yarn, which is by Laxton's. I'll explain a bit more about them shortly. Now, that, if only we could all knit like that. Actually, you can get Jennifer's pattern if you go on to buy Laxton's for their knitting yarns. They've kindly put that there for Jennifer. And again, Jennifer Koch, this was part of the Wool Week campaign again. So I'm just going to tell you a little bit more as well about, this is the yarn spinners, Laxton's, who supplied the wool. Well, again, it's another heritage story. The yarn that's used in this is called the 50-mile fleece. So it means that the manufacturing to end, from raw material to end product, is all done within 50 miles. And of course, as I said, this particular colour is undyed. There's a lot of variation in British wool natural sheep colours, fleece colours. And when you see them all put together, the undyed ones, this big colour range right through to a very dark, almost black grey. Now, Laxton's is another mill with a fascinating history. It was established in 1907. It's still a family business, and that's fourth generation. They supply major fashion brands worldwide, as well as hand knitting yarns. And I know the mill through Yorkshire textile projects using British wool, and it's renowned in the industry for being really cutting edge and leading the industry in innovation in British wool yarns. There are very few yarn spinners and manufacturers with GOTS or Global Textile Standards certification, and Laxton's have that. Before the First World War, Laxton's developed a process. They were working with a local weaver, and they developed a new technology which enabled them to produce the first lightweight mohair suiting fabric in the world. So that's another example of innovation and part of the heritage. And, of course, Laxton's have recently developed the VR training as part of a Future Fashion Factory-funded project. So people can virtually train using immersive technology to understand and gain the confidence to enable them to undertake some of the processes within the mill. I think we've got a slide of the blue outfits. Yeah, this is it. Now, this is actually British wool. All those blue garments are made from British wool. And when people think of British wool garments, they often think of very outdoorsy tweeds. And what we wanted to do with this was demonstrate, this is thanks to the finishers, W.T. Johnson's. We created this really luxe finish on this, to the point where, as you can see in the centre, we've had an evening dress or a cocktail dress made from this cloth. That was made actually by a young team member of Anita Massarella's couture in Leeds. So that project for me was really interesting. Why we did it, why we did this really British wool as well, was part of it, was that it was for the Tour de France when it first came to Yorkshire. And we wanted a story that told everything from scratch, which is basically about the the fleece, this is Yorkshire, the sheep, this is Yorkshire, the textiles, the tailoring, all Yorkshire, and we wanted something that summed it up. So hence, from scratch, as I said, we made this exclusive cloth. We work with Susan Gaunt, who you may know, and she'd worked with Laxton's before using British wool yarn. And this was used, as I said, for all the it was actually UKFT, who you can see there, who did a fantastic, huge fashion show for the launch of Tour de France here. And there was about, I think, 40 local textiles and manufacturing people from Yorkshire in that event showing their clothes. So it just showed the interest was there. And what was really great was that people were engaging with this. We had people having great interviews. There was TV follow-ups afterwards. The cameras went to W.T. Johnson's about the magic of finishing. So it was really exciting. And as I said, this was this particular cloth was used as the launch colour. So I think we've got the Yorkshire tailors, and that was, I must say that's Carl Stewart and Samuel Brothers, who were the tailors, as I said, along with Anita Massarella. The brilliant weaver behind this cloth, we did our first run on a vintage Hattersley loom, and it was, I still use vintage Hattersley looms for some of my projects. I'm not weaving on them myself, I just reference them, the working ones, which are in Bradford Industrial Museum and Leeds Industrial Museum. When we'd actually done that first run, we had another small weave to do the next run of this cloth. But that Hattersley loom was invented here in Yorkshire, in Keighley, and it's still used in part of the world now, which is, very sustainable kit is that Hattersley. Now, coming back to young designers, I have another slide coming up. Yep. This is actually, this was a project I did with Kevin Almond, who some of you will probably know, Huddersfield, way beyond Huddersfield. And what we wanted to do is show how different types of cloth could be used in unexpected ways. I think there was a sort of a bit of a fear with young designers that they weren't quite it's going to be too heavy, too complicated, and they were using quite lightweight things. So I wanted to show the versatility of cloth, and this particular cloth, how it draped. Now, I have to point out there are 2 leather garments in here, and that was not the cloth, but those leather garments, the leather was donated to Leeds Fashion Works by Aspreys, the jewellers. So what we actually did, we went to, obviously Kevin was at the graduate show, and we actually looked at all the garments, the most insanely different fabrics as well, and had them recreated in this really sumptuous doeskin black and red cloth from Hainsworth. And you can't quite see it on these images, but the doeskin has such a beautiful sheen. And I know young designers I've worked with, when they first use doeskin, they go, it's all this woolen textiles, it's so easy to work with. So those garments were actually made by the highly skilled and very patient technicians at Huddersfield, using couture skills to recreate. So some of these garments started out as, man-made fibre, flimsy cloths and things. And it just shows really how majestic they look made in this doeskin cloth. I don't know if we have another one. Oh, yes, we have a quick one, I think, of a follow-on project. That's it. This was with Kate Duckworth. Now, Kate, it was one of her outfits in the display. She temporarily worked at Hainsworth for a while as well, so she was quite addicted to their cloth. And we had an opportunity, so we could give Kate this rather major task of creating a new woman's chancellor's gown bespoke for Gabby Logan when she became Chancellor of Leeds University. And so new university, we wanted to connect with heritage, and so Kate designed and made this gown. Now, the interesting thing, and again, I haven't got the slide, apologies, but in the back of the gown, there is an insert in a big circle of some beautiful archive fabric, which came from Susan Gaunt's Sunnybank Mills, which is absolutely amazing. And if you get a chance, book an appointment and go and see the archives at Sunnybank Mills, because they're absolutely fantastic. And I think, I mean, that's something as well. Building digital archives is very important right now, because not only is it a brilliant, easy resource for the mills to have, but the patterns and designs over all these centuries, in effect, they're not just historically interesting. It's a bit like us translating that jacquard, not knowing what it was going to be, but it's actually also interesting for contemporary design. So you could tap into something and say, right, I want a 70s feel or an 80s feel or something, and those designs are there. So this is becoming a thing. Thanks. I think we can remove Gabby now from, right. I'll come back to explaining about Cunnington and Sanderson in a moment. Abraham Moons, or Moons, they're a Future Fashion Factory member, and they had the funding call, successful funding call, to digitise their archives, which is brilliant news. They were founded in 1837, internationally renowned, of course, supply many fashion brands across the world. They're well known for their tweeds. You may have probably heard of Bronte tweeds as well. And we're again going back, repeating this sort of history here, because they began originally by supplying yarn for people who handloom pieces of cloth that were then sold in Leeds market. So Moon supplied the yarn, but then they collected them and they actually washed them and finished them before they took them then, and then went to Leeds markets. And they're one of the few remaining vertical mills now in the UK. So the amount of complexity, if you have all processes on one site, means that there's some great opportunities as well for projects they've done with Future Fashion Factory. They've got a new system at the moment helping to reduce waste in accurate dye processing. So this slide now is Cunnington and Sanderson, as you can see. And I'm just going to check on, this is the model. This was Paris Vogue, and Cunnington and Sanderson, if you haven't heard of them, they're locally based designers. They work closely with the mills, and this is in Moon's cloth. Again, it's wool, it's tweedy, but it still has the drape on those sleeves is beautiful. Now, this was from, as I said, Vogue Paris. Obviously, it's featured in other magazines, Elle magazine. This is worn by model, supermodel, Suzanne von Eichinger. We have another image here from Cunnington and Sanderson, also in Moon's cloth as well. I love this. This is the grey pantsuit. This was also for in Paris. And this is worn by the fashion influencer, the iconic fashion influencer and artist, Lily Gatins. Now, to quickly touch on this, the marketing side, the power of creative marketing across all channels now is phenomenal. We've got so much more. Everyone's doing it. And it's not just people who are only online. It's bricks and mortar stores. Everyone's into this. And it's a huge growth area yet. There's a lot of exciting things happening. What I like about this and the sort of work that John and Matt, Cunnington and Sanderson have done is that they've been quite ahead on the game on this. And they've made themselves, they've worked with the influencers. But what I do like about this slightly different world we're working in terms of young designers, it's a window, it's a gateway, if you like, into doing things at a level they couldn't have joined before, just because of the sheer cost. So, for example, something like London Fashion Week, I think that was, people could actually connect directly with the young designers showing. So it wasn't just the buyers there, it was the audience, and the cost of engaging digitally with that compared to putting on a full fashion show, considerably different. I think people want to connect with this sort of designer at the moment. I'm not saying it's a new trend, but I think it's getting stronger. I know Cunnington Sanderson do a lot around zero waste in the drape and the cut of the fabric. And they did actually win a competition for 360-degree photography from Future Fashion Factory. So they could use that on their platforms, but also they went on to Jour, which is an international buyers platform for really great labels. So the narrative of the story for young designers is vital. It's becoming so important now because, as I said at the beginning, we have sustainability to think about. It's not just a case of greenwash. This has to be as it's going to be. And designers add value to their narrative and their products. And if you can use something like biodegradable wool to boot, which is sort of antibacterial as well and decomposes and all those great things about wool, that's even better. But to use wool from the mills in Yorkshire supplying the world's leading brands, I think really gives impact to that story. And I know Mark Jarvis has also presented within this lecture series, and he talked about the phases of clothing. So we went from bespoke, then it was mass manufactured, and now people are wanting to come back to personalization. And again, I think this is a great opportunity for smaller design brands using and influencing, if you like, how and where they can get hold of, use and develop the right technology so that they can do things on a relatively small scale and have a very big impact. So I think that's a positive point, probably for me to end on. But I'd just like to say that, because I hope we're having a discussion, that the celebrating of the heritage of Yorkshire's textiles, it's about creativity, and it's also about innovation, and it always has been. And so I hope I've given you a little insight into the industry as we are today in the global fashion industry. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Suzy, for excellent presentation. My first very serious question is, we looked at that beautiful blue fabric.
Yes.
Don't you think that a particular young and handsome member of the core Future Fashion Factory should get a free sample?
That's an interesting thought, yes. You might have to go to the beautiful hand-woven and original version of it as well to add to
that. On a slightly more serious note, what do you think? Means you have shown such good case studies from Future Fashion Factory. What do you think that the long-term legacy of Future Fashion Factory will be in the Yorkshire textile and fashion industry?
I think, Parik, what's unique about Future Fashion Factory in this is that it's so widespread with these conversations, as you know, but it's connected to the heart of the industry in Huddersfield as well, with you, of course. It's connected to the Royal College of Art and some of the fabulous things and innovation and design that's coming from there. So you do get this connection between all this input of technology as well and all that. It's connected up, and it's quite incredible to think that all these parts of this huge feed, if you like, into the industry for the end product is so vast and so connected. And for me, the legacy is so people here can actually see. That would be great for me, and understand people in Yorkshire, make jobs for people in Yorkshire because they connect within that industry and can have quite such as Adam Mansell said, wide range of roles within the industry. So it's engaging with people here and getting that story out there.
Absolutely. That is actually, Suzy, my view as well. That the long-time legacy means what I can see in the ground level is people have started talking about it. People have started understanding the importance of this industry now. Now that I think nicely leads on to a question that our colleague Sarah Parkin is asking, our colleague in Future Fashion Factory. Now, Sarah is asking that what more we can do so that at least people in Yorkshire knows about the importance of this industry. Are we doing enough?
Probably not. I mean, I've always been very keen since my experience with the Harvey Nichols project to really promote the industry and raise awareness. I mean, from the images you see, sort of Kate Moss, you know, that those brands want that heritage. It's valuable to them because that heritage tells you about the quality and the, you know, the Rolls Royce of the fabric that's being produced here. That's becoming a brand narrative now, and I think that's really good. It was always known before, but now people are talking about it because of those issues of sustainability, you know, where it is in the supply chain, what the fabric is. So I think they're quite good opportunities for people. There's opportunities generally here, but also for the designers as well to use that as part of their narrative.
Brilliant. One of our PhD student, Shubhadeep Paul, is asking that obviously, means I'm paraphrasing the question. The question is, obviously, we need to think of alternative to petroleum-based products. Now, you have highlighted very rightly so about how the supply chain starts from British wool and goes forward.
Mm.
Is there a way we can do research so that some of the man-made fibers are replaced with products like wool going forward?
Absolutely. I think the performance, we've seen it with other wools as well. They've been put into basically performance outerwear, as it's called. There's lots of ways that it can be used. There's definitely an appetite for that, but with British wool in particular, I think it's a completely underestimated in how we can use it in different ways. I mean, you can see from that cloth, that was a quite unexpected finish on that cloth. You got a luminous look to it, which you wouldn't expect from British wool ordinarily. I think in the knitting industry, obviously, it's Blue Face Leicester is a very luxurious wool. So it's being used probably more in knitting than textiles in fashion, but it depends what that fashion garment is. But British wool has so many things we could be looking at and developing that are really exciting. And I think it would be great if we could get to that point. I mean, that was why we did that as the Tour de France, or Tour de Fleece Blue, as we call it, because that was showing, you know, here are sheep in our countryside on our doorstep. And that's where the cyclists were whizzing around past the sheep. So that was just telling the whole story of the heritage here. But we could, I am sure we could do more with British wool. Yeah.
Absolutely. A trend of similar questions are coming, which I think is very interesting. Means we all know, means you touched on that, the effect of COVID. Obviously, the fashion industry is changing a bit. So what is your thought on that? And with your vast amount of experience, do you have any suggestion for young designers going forward in this environment?
Well, I think obviously someone like Lee Hurst, who'd worked at a tailor's in between before he actually finished and went on to Royal College of Art to do his MA. I think experience is great. I think for young designers, if you look around what's on your doorstep, if you're in Yorkshire, because we get loads of requests from people at Royal College of Art wanting to come and visit the mills here. So if you're a designer here, it's very easy. And once things get a bit more normal, so if you can find out more about your local mills, what those cloths are, what you know, what you can pick up there, what's the minimum orders. If you learn to work with a manufacturer, if you're going to produce garments and you want to build up that name, you've got to have a relationship with your manufacturers and your base product people in the luxury garments. And so if you're looking at being into any sort of luxury design, definitely connect with the mills. It adds to your narrative. That Yorkshire sells is no joke. Like Yorkshire tea, it is no joke when it comes to international markets for textiles produced here. I mean, that you're really raising your game by saying that. So you've already got that platform, if you like, of regional textiles. you can do a small amount. There's now with online, there's far more. It's not, I suppose when online started as an online, it was big companies. Now, I think if you're a young brand and you can stylishly handle your own website, feed in your stories, feed into social media, I think that's really quite a good opportunity to test the market in small items. So sell your story, sell your brand through a really clear narrative to what people are looking for in the luxury fashion market. And there's a lot of, as you know, Parik, there's so much going on with Future Fashion Factory in developing these, if you like, creative further, these platforms, how people can interact. And I think that'll add as well.
Absolutely. With your permission, Suzy, I want to add to that, saying that our vision is also so that the universities who are associated with Future Fashion Factory, and obviously you shaped that vision as well, like Huddersfield University, Leeds University, Royal College of Art.
Yeah.
We can act as a bridge between the Yorkshire mills and aspiring designers, trying to understand their need, talking the translating that design language into technical language, and that is definitely one of the cornerstone of Future Fashion Factory. That leads nicely to the next question, that we obviously got a good case study now about Yorkshire industries through Future Fashion Factory. If how can people outside our geographic region connect with Future Fashion Factory? I think that is a very interesting question.
Well, we've got the Royal College of Art, so we're already the best place for fashion in London there. So I think using the connections and building those relationships that we have, as you know, Parik, like with some of the companies such as Burberry and the interconnection there, they're bridges, as you say, to other things. So people may work for someone like Burberry in Yorkshire, or they may be doing it in London. But I've known people who've worked for both once they've joined Burberry. So there's that constant, it'd be good to see that constant flow between the two places as a textile homeland here, you know, connecting with those designers, both here, but in the UK. That would be great. And Future Fashion Factory developing the technology that we could have people working together, you know, whether physically or virtually.
Absolutely. With one thing I have to mention, that today we are getting highest amount of questions and discussions. With so many questions we are getting, that I normally don't struggle with it, but I am today.
I will say, actually, what we could do is I've got a sign up saying my internet connection is unstable. I've got to the end almost and it's been there, so that's good. But what we can do is perhaps, if there's lots of questions coming in, they could be directed as well to Future Fashion Factory on their website. Sarah can pass them on, or info@yorkshiretextiles.org. So if we miss some, we can follow them up. Yeah.
Absolutely. And we will be also happy to coordinate that along with colleagues from Future Fashion Factory. So it will be taken care of, the questions, nothing will get missed. One thing that we are always interested is we need talent, like every other industry. So Suzy, knowing the industry so well, what will be how you will communicate to aspiring A-level student to join this industry, whether it be fashion, textiles, costume? How means, I know you know how great this industry is. How should we communicate that to the next generation?
I think that's how I started getting myself connected to textiles, by working with teenagers who were looking for work in the fashion industry or textile industry potentially, but fashion industry, you know, not necessarily even in retail. And that's how it got me going. I connected to that. The team at Harvey Nichols went out to the mills. They became terribly enthusiastic. I think it's got to be seen as an option. And I think probably as someone said, more than one person said after the Harvey Nichols event, what, we have all these mills here? And I think, well, yes. So I think we've got to shout about those mills a bit, but we've got to explain to people how different those mills may be to some of the maybe negative images they have from, 30, 40 years ago. That, oh, they all closed down. It's sort of, it's that and that's not the case, because the mills that are here and surviving, exporting up to 90% of their product, are all creating the best of whatever their specialist cloth is. And so this isn't just working, it sounds like an advert for something else, not just working for any cloth, this is working for Yorkshire textiles cloth. That's the difference. And we need to engage with young people, as Adam Mansell and obviously UKFT do. Think, yeah, it'd be great for us to do more here, Parik, as well, definitely, yeah.
Totally agree, Suzy. Means, as you know, I'm only judged by timekeeping as a chair of this session. So I'm very keen to finish on time. So if I have missed any questions, I completely apologize for that. But as Suzy said, that we'll follow up on all the questions. Suzy, on behalf of Department of Fashion and Textiles, and on behalf of Art Design and Architecture, University of Huddersfield, I want to thank you for attending today. Really, really motivating lecture.